So today I really want to talk about the documentary. I want to talk about episode 1. I'm going to break this down over 3 episodes for you guys to talk specifically about each episode and share my thoughts and tell you more about really what this process was like. I really want to share with you how I feel it unfolded, how I feel like it went wrong, and where it went wrong for me personally. I feel like it's important to clarify some things because what you see in the documentary is really different from what it was supposed to be. This is really close to my heart. This is a really hard topic to talk about. This was a project that I put myself all on the line for, all of me, to be vulnerable and to try to make the best of the situation by telling the story and honoring my family. So please just have an open mind and just listen to what I have to say. So episode 1 really breaks down into touching on the past of my mom, getting into what happened with my dad eventually, and giving you tidbits of information about my family and what it was like for my mom growing up, her family, and really the underlying tone of the entire documentary, but especially in episode 1, is trying to tell the story of a supposed mother that was this person and this really liked person who all of a sudden flipped her switch. And it's supposed to make you think and critically think of how did this happen when she was this, and this. The original idea was to tell my family story. You were supposed to know who Tylee was at the end of the documentary. You're supposed to know who JJ was at the end of the documentary. I felt like you should have known who Charles was. I wanted to bring in people that knew them, loved them, cared about them, and put together a family story, not just the Lori story. And that's what was so hard for me, is that it became a narrative solely about the psychosis of my mom. I feel like the way that portrayed my mom was trying to show all of the moments, her biggest moments, you could call them, her Wheel of Fortune, her moments of her beauty pageant, or whatever the case was, to try to paint this picture of who she actually was. I think in the reality, she was a lot different than that. I think those moments were her trying to gratify herself and trying to be something more than maybe she thought she was. I think that those moments scream something different. I think those moments are her trying to feel special. I think those moments are her trying to break out of the normal, feeling like she has this potential. This is my own personal opinion. I think that she's trying to show the world and maybe herself that there is something more in her life, that she's not just a mom that does hair, that has kids, but that she has a potential to be something bigger. She must have wanted something more. And I think that's how all of this has unfolded. I think the documentary's perspective really shifted outside because yes, it's helpful in a lot of the facts. So the documentary, and in the episode 1 specifically, really does try to line up facts. It tries to get the timeline, it tries to do some of those things. It does help create a timeline for the entirety of what happened, all the events that unfolded. One thing I'll give them credit for is putting together the text messages, putting together more of what I think was some more case-based things, not family-based things. And that's a big difference. We talked about that prior to making the documentary, and it was supposed to be a real story, not a case story, not a bigger story about a little bit of family and mostly case stuff. And that's what I feel like it turned into. Episode 1 heavily focuses on my mom as a person and her past going into the future and setting you up for the rest of the series, which in my opinion sets you up to just ask that question, how did we get here? Their perspective did not align with the vision, and you just get tidbits of information. And I think that the problem was, here's your main course, and then everything else is a side. And Tylee's a side, Charles is a side, JJ's a side. And you really just have me there to tell this bigger narrative and lead this narrative down. And I think that's the problem that happens with media a lot of times, is that it's perspective based. And what happens is that someone has a perspective or a story, and if they're really good at telling it, they'll edit it down and whittle it down to become what they want it to be. And I think in episode 1, you can tell right off the bat that this is the Lori story. Now, what's even more frustrating is because I've even seen comments of people asking, are you talking about the Netflix documentary about Lori? And that hurts my heart. And it's not that the person who left that comment hurt my heart. It hurts my heart that that's the perspective, because yeah, if you turn that documentary on, it's the Lori story. It's Lori's documentary, and it's about her. And everybody pulled in was talking about Lori and Chad the whole time. I don't feel people walked away with the perspective of Tylee or JJ. And in episode 1, you're really just in a timeline and you're walking towards the events. If you want the truth, how I feel my mom ended up here. I've never really fully shared this, but I'll give you the best that I can. I believe that my mom ended up where she is because of deep traumas and hurts and a sense of wanting more than anything to be special and accepted and believe that everything she's ever gone through has a purpose, and she needed to be validated in some really big way. It was a fantasy. She was caught in the moment, and she also must have had a lot of dark thoughts prior to everything happening. See, what I don't understand is how we believe that somebody just went from point A to point B. And in the documentary, especially episode 1, you almost get this idea that this person was just this totally normal person that snapped one day. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. What I am saying is that there's bigger things going on here. If you really dive into that time, I think she was going through a lot, and I think it broke her down. And I think that those thoughts change. And when you're in a hard time, your thoughts start to be, darker. But you choose what you do with your life. You choose how your life ends up. And you choose to make yourself better or let it be worse. That's the choice you get. You don't get to choose the trauma all the time. You don't get to choose the narrative. You don't get to choose anything else. But what you do choose is your actions and what you can do next. And that's what's hard about this whole entire reality. And my family story is that she chose to do the worst of the worst with her pains. The documentary touched on some things. It did get things right. It got some things wrong, which is, interesting, because they had the people there to help correct those things. But all in all, I feel like it lacked the complexity. It lacked the real layers, because you didn't really dive into the family story. You dived into more of the well-known sensational side. And I think that that's what changes the points, is if you get the people, pull the people in, like the plan was to, pull the people in to talk about that they lived it. We're talking about people being pulled in who lived in the moment, who were at these events, at the, Thanksgiving dinner, who knew those things and had different perspectives of what they saw, to really give you an understanding. And then also do that for talking about all of the people who are gone, giving them a place of love, honor, and respect going through the entire thing. Overall, episode 1 was really hard for me. I actually made my reaction video that you might have seen on the channel pretty much following right after that, and maybe 15, 20 minutes into the second episode. Watching what happened to my dad, watching my mom smile, and watching my mom be calm, and watching her be, completely disassociated and not care at all, opened a deep wound in me. I'm trying to deal with that, and I'm trying to work through that pain and accept it as fact and continue to choose to go forward. And as hard as it is, this episode brought out the truth of, some of the truth, right? Brought out some points and brought out some, light on the situation that happened. What I feel it lacked was empathy. And what I think it lacked was the love and the respect for everybody who's gone. And I think that it was just more, here's some information. And I think that that's the wrong way to tell a narrative, and that's the wrong way to honor someone. That's just my thoughts on episode 1. In the next couple of days, weeks, whatever the case is, very soon, I'm going to be breaking down episode 2 and then episode 3, giving you my final thoughts, letting you know exactly really what I think. Like I said, when I watched episode 1, it tore me up. It tore my stomach up. It just immediately hit me like a brick, and I couldn't palate it all. And it took me actually a while after watching that to make this video for you, because I needed time to even process what I saw, because it's so brutal. Thank you guys for sticking with me in the situation. Thank you for walking this with me. It has not been easy, but I do not feel alone because of our community, because of what we've been going through together, because you guys are here and you're real. So I want to thank you for that. Thank you, everybody who's been a part of this journey. I'll continue to break down episode 2 and then episode 3 later on. I appreciate you guys and thank you, and I'll see you soon.